Hey guys, got another video here for you, and I hope everybody's doing well. And today I've got another popular fountain pen. Now this is a pen that has been reviewed a lot by a lot of other YouTubers as well as bloggers, and rightfully so. It's another Moonman pen, of course, and this is the Moonman Wancai. And for whatever reason, I haven't really purchased this pen. You know, I've had this pen on my list to obtain or get, but I've always gone a different route. Of course, like a lot of us, we have a lot of pens on our list, and for whatever reason, I've always gone a different route. Well, finally, I thought it would be nice to kind of purchase this pen and add it to my collection, and I saw a listing for it on eBay that I couldn't pass up, and of course I purchased it. And now the question is, do I like the fountain pen? So first things first, kind of show you a little bit real quick what the packaging looks like. Very reminiscent of another Moonman packaging, such as the M2 model. Literally the same type of frosted look here on the case. Pops open the same way. You got the same type of foam insert. You'll see right here where the pen would be. You've got your little syringe here. And then it does come with cartridges, which I think is kind of nice. So if you don't have ink readily available, you do have cartridges that you can put inside of the barrel or attach to the section, and you've got a pen that is inked at that point. Now, looking at the pen, first impressions, when I first got it and I opened up the package, I was like, wow, this is a very small pen. As far as the overall length of it, it is by far the smallest pen I have, but it does have some girth to it, which kind of gives it a little bit of substance, so to speak. So obviously it's a pocket pen, so yes, you want a small pen, and this pocket pen is very much so different than any of the other pocket pens that I own. It has no clip. It is small, but it does kind of, it's like that small or a big dog trapped in a small dog's body type vibe to it, especially when you're using it. And I'll kind of talk about that as we look at the pen. The next thing I noticed was this really pretty, green, translucent material. And then, of course, as you can tell, it's got depth to it by them adding these cloud type pieces into the material. And I think it is a very, very nice touch. Now, this is a torpedo shaped pen, somewhat of a rounded end up here at the cap. And then you have a nice smooth transition. There's no step down like you do with a lot of fountain pens from the cap to the barrel. And again, nice smooth transition till you get to the end. You'll notice that the end here, we actually have threads. And again, another nice rounded piece. And you can tell it is completely hollowed out in there because the ink goes all the way through it. So kind of cool. One of the nicest things about pens like this, such as the M2 and this Wancai model, is just, sometimes sitting there and just watching the ink slosh back and forth, of course. Now, as I stated before, there's no clip on this pen, which I think with the size of this pen and everything else, it's kind of nice that you don't have a clip. You can easily slide it in just about any pocket and you're good to go. I was even able to get this pen to easily fit in my the small part of my jean pocket. And I think that's kind of something that, you might be like, well, why is that important? Well, it's nice because I don't have to slide it in where, say, I have my keys and other things where the pen might get scratched or beat up. To me, it's a little bit more protected from that perspective. Now, taking off the cap, of course, it is a twist-off cap. It's got very nice threads here. And now the first thing you'll notice when you take this cap off, however, that there is a pretty good sized step down from the barrel onto the section. And that's because you've got that streamlined transition from the cap to the barrel. You're unfortunately going to have that big step down. Now, some people may not like that. The section is a decent size, and we'll compare it to some other pens, but it's not bad. It is a skinnier section. Now, of course, you do have this flare out at the very end. section tapers down just ever so slightly, but the step down is something that some people may not enjoy. Now you'll notice I'm holding this pen in my hand, and really there's no real way I can write with this unposted. So of course you have threads back here, so you can screw the cap to post, and then it makes for a much more comfortable writing experience. Now typically I find myself holding the pen about right here where that step down is at. And for whatever reason, you would think that that would create a lot of discomfort when I'm writing, but it actually does not for me. The threads here are machined nicely. They're not really sharp or anything. And I don't know if it's just because of the position of my fingers or because it's different. I don't really get a lot of hand fatigue. My fingers aren't sore. And I've written several pages at once with this pen without any bad hand fatigue. Obviously, with the being out of a plastic material, it is a very lightweight pen. It's obviously small. There's no metal on it besides the actual nib, which we'll get to in a moment. So it is a very light pen. Now, the nib is basically the same nib that you get on your M2. This is a fine nib, and nothing really crazy about the nib. To me, it kind of looks a little bit like a Yovo nib just as far as the overall scroll work. And yes, it says Iridium Point on it, and obviously it's not a Yovo nib. I'm just saying it kind of looks like that. It is essentially basically a number 5 nib. You flip it over, we've got kind of that Schmidt styled feed. So I would say this is a Schmidt feed, or at least a German feed on the back, and it works well. The pen, I'll show you in the writing sample. The feed and everything works well on this pen. But there you have it. I mean, overall, this is the pen essentially. So we'll do some sizing comparisons up next, and then we'll kind of move on from there, guys. All right, guys, so we're back. And you may say, well, this is a weird sizing comparison. But, you know, a lot of times when we're looking at sizing comparisons, and when I saw that, I watched several videos on this pen, I would see this pen, and you're seeing it sized against other fountain pens. And now I may own 1 or 2 or more of the fountain pens that it's being sized against. So relatively speaking, I should understand how small this pen is. But then you don't really realize it until you actually have the pen in front of you. And when I opened up the box and saw this pen, I was like, wow, this is a very small pen. And I'm showing you this because I always put my chapstick in this small pocket in my jeans. And to kind of give you an idea, yes, this is bigger than my chapstick, but it actually fits in there very well. I'm actually able to put the nib up, and I actually like, if I'm taking this pen with me anywhere, that's generally where I put the pen. And of course, just wanted to give you a basic size comparison against a thing of chapstick. Now let's look at it against some other fountain. We've got, I would say, 3 fairly common fountain pens. So we've got the Pilot Petite here. We have the Delight Alpha in the resin material, and then we have a Pilot Metropolitan up top here. Kind of make sure I get them all on the screen there. But to give you an idea, this is the smallest pen overall in stature against these other 3. But like I said before, even though it's smaller, it does have some girth to it overall, as far as it is actually has a greater diameter than this Pilot Petite here, and the Delight Alpha. Mine is actually wider than those 2 pens. And the Pilot Metropolitan is somewhat of a skinny pen to begin with, while it does have this thicker diameter here in the middle. It's a kind of a skinnier pen. Now let's see the pen stacked up against these other pens and kind of show off the nib. Now, of course, all 4 pens essentially posted. You can tell that this is still the smallest out of the 4 pens, but at the same time, it gets much closer to the Pilot Petite. The Delight Alpha is going to be the longest out of the the 3 pocket pens, and then the Pilot Metropolitan, of course, is the longest out of the 4 pens altogether. But again, as I stated before, once you screw to post on this pen, I think for just about anybody in this you have abnormally, this should be a very comfortable pen to hold in the hand, and you should have a solid writing experience with it. And the other thing is kind of comparing sections and stuff. Now, all of these pens are designed differently, of course, but you can kind of see that we have a step down here with the Pilot Petite. We have a kind of a long straight section here. It's really the smallest section out of these 3 pocket pens. And typically on this one, I'm usually holding it about right here, so I don't really have my fingers over here on the actual section. I'm usually more up here. And then the Pilot Metropolitan is got a really tapered down section. You'll notice it has a very a decent sized step down as well, because that cap and barrel are more streamlined. But all in all, I mean, I think it's a nice comparison. Most people own these other 3 pens, or at least one of them. Just to kind of give you an idea of the overall size. As I stated before, when I opened up the packaging, I was like, wow, that is a small pen. But not in a bad way. I actually enjoy the overall size, and the design of this pen is very, very nice. And I enjoy writing with it, and I'll show you the writing sample, how nice the pen writes. So up next, guys, we are going to have some sizing, weights, and measurements up on the screen for you, just to give you, again, a little bit more of a visual, and then we'll do a writing sample. See you in a sec. All right, guys, we are back for the writing sample, and we are going to post Mr. Wancai. And as I stated before, this is the Moonman Wancai. Now, one thing nice to note about this pen is I got this from a US based eBayer. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is I paid $13.29 for the pen, which is pretty similar to what you'd pay if you were to purchase it from China. The shipping was free shipping, so I didn't pay anything for shipping. And of course, I got the pen very quickly. I will put a link in the description to the eBayer's account, not so much the auction that I purchased this from, because of course, if you're watching this video 6 months from now, that auction's going to be over with. But I will put a link to that eBayer, because they have they've had other pens. I got my Moonman M2 from that same eBayer, and it's nice because, again, I'm not having to wait for that 2 to 3 week time frame. I'm getting the pen within about a week. So 1 week, and the pen was to my front door. This right here, this too, is my fault. I did not have the pen all the way on the paper. Overall, this pen writes nice. The ink that I have is, I gotta look on my thing, diamine. Had to think for a sec. Ancient copper. All right, let's do an actual writing sample. It's a very smooth nib. So there you have it. Very smooth nib, writes well. Now, can you get any line variation? Is there any line variation with this nib at all? And to answer that, here's no pressure. You know, I guess you can squeeze out a little bit. There you see a railroad. I pushed it a little too hard that time. And really, this pen is not meant at all to, give any line variation. It's just meant for a nice, smooth writing experience. Nothing else. Like I said, it stated before, the nib is smooth. It is a fine nib. And I'm probably getting that issue right there because I probably pushed it a little too hard. My F kind of took it a second to go. I had any issues with this nib as far as hard starts or anything like that. So I have no complaints. Obviously, just like your M2, you can change out this nib if you wanted to. You can get number 5 size nibs all over the place, and if you don't like this nib, you can clearly change it out. But as I stated, it's a smooth nib. I enjoy riding with it. I'm going to leave this nib in here. I'm not going to change it out or anything like that. So there you have it, guys. That is my review of the Moonman Wancai. It is a very, very nice fountain pen that I enjoy quite a lot. Zoom out here so you can see the whole writing sample and the pen. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Let me know in the comment section if you have one of these guys and what you think about it. There's a lot of different materials. There's obviously a completely clear one. There's this pen that I have here. There was hard rubber or ebonite versions, but from what I can tell, all of those have sold out, and I have not seen them replenished anywhere, whether it be Etsy or eBay. If you own one of those, let us know what you think about the material. They were more expensive, I think in the $50 to high $50 range, mid to high $50 range. So there was a big difference in price versus $13 to $15 versus $60 for an ebonite version. I will put a link in the description for the US-based eBayer if you would like to purchase the pen from them. Other than that, everyone take care, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.